though I can imagine they can be controversial for the entirety of the religion.
So basically, the philosophy that we follow or we embrace, the distinction doesn't even go at the bodily level. Don't get intimidated by that. He has a habit of taking some videos here and there.
No problem.
It's all good.
We see that inherently we are all spirit souls. The covering that we are having, this body, is temporary. Just because somebody is born in America, he thinks he's American. Just because somebody is born in India, she thinks Indian. Or somebody is born in some other country, he thinks that I am from that country. But these are all gross covering. Inherently, we are all spirit souls, and the spirit soul's characteristics is same. So when somebody develops that vision, not even seeing a person who is born in a different caste or country, even other species of life, like even reptile or an elephant, everybody he sees with equal vision. This is the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. The verse, it says, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmani Gabhi Hastini Sunichena Supakecha Pandita Samadarshina. A real learned man is he who's not just discriminating just because I am born in some country or some caste and discriminating another person, but even it is going further level. Anybody who's living, who's got life, he sees them with equal vision. Forget about harming someone who's from another caste or creed. Even to a lower species of life like an animal which is being eaten by somebody for satisfying the palate, that also he respects.
I see. And so I guess, so you're saying that or based on what you said, the spirituality doesn't believe in workplace discrimination.
Absolutely not. Absolutely. Forget about workplace discrimination. It doesn't even believe in discrimination with, as I said, even an ant which is going, we don't want to stamp on it or do something. Nobody does that, but there could be someone who thinks that there is no life in animals. But that also is, that the vision is so purified, but that is possible only when you have vidya, which is transcendental knowledge, and if you have vinaya, which is humility. When these two things are there, a person's vision changes. Otherwise, it is difficult. You will see only the differences. You will see this person.
I think that makes a lot of sense to the question I asked you initially, where I was just like, what's the difference? Is this is the Hare Krishna temple association in some way related more on the religious part, which in my perspective is related to the Manusmriti, the rules, the the whole that theory where they say if caste is born out of a man, the head is a Brahmin, the hand is a Kshatriya, the knees are I don't know something, but the feet is a Shudra because they're the lowest form of people. And then there's the whole concept of Jati and Varna where tribal people don't even come in the Jati system, which is ultimately builds the whole thing. And I get the spirituality route does not believe in those things in some way. What is your opinion on people making the system, taking the Bhagavad Gita, putting in collaborating with the Manusmriti rules and making it something that is so harmful for people from the lower caste?
So imagine, you have, what are you studying here? 2.6 you said? No.
I'm studying
6.2.
Yeah,
electrical and comp science. Right? So if
and planning and mechanical engineering.
Yeah. So imagine if I am going to be a student of comp science, I will do some research to find out where are the institutes, who are the institutes who are offering this course. I would not go to a random school which is talking about something else and try to pursue my subject of interest. That due diligence I have to do myself to find out which is a good institute, who are the good professors here, good, if there is a good reputation about that, then only I do. So if somebody wants to talk anything, nobody can stop them. Who is getting influenced by them? If we are getting influenced, I should do a due diligence on my side to see the credibility of that person who's trying to say something. Just because somebody is saying something and there is probably a large following, you should not blindly believe in something. You have to do your due diligence in seeing whether his saying is making sense or whether it is really given or not. Because if somebody takes some name of some book and try to say something which is suits his purpose or motive, and you blindly follow. More than blaming that person, it is we who are to be blamed.
Definitely. I think like this problem also permeates into Indian government in some way because
Everywhere, the
majority of our government is
Yeah.
upper caste Hindu
Yeah.
at the end of the day, and they take this and they put the narrative on this. So like, and like especially, don't mind me saying this, but like, I think where I come from, like where my land was, I'm from Visakhapatnam. It's a small place in Andhra
I
Pradesh.
know very good.
Yeah,
He's Gopal is from
Vijayawada. I know, I'm aware. Like I feel like even with the north and south divide, I feel like a lot of times like our religiousness in some way is seen in some sort of a dirty way than from the north, especially if you go
See,
north.
I'll tell you, basically if a person, if he's not clean in the heart, he will find differences no matter what. Even if you're from the same village, same state, same country, next door neighbor, he will find differences and he'll have quarrel. But if you're pure within, you will not see any differences. That's what I was telling.
Yeah.
To get that vision, what is required is transcendental knowledge and humility.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there are so many people who will behave irrationally, without proper discrimination. There are so many such people. But the real purport or the intent of this Vedic scriptures is not to create this kind of thing. These are people who are taking advantage for their own benefits. They are trying to manipulate the things. That is what I am trying to
Yeah.
caution.
That makes sense. And like, it was just like, I think it's just because I've seen a different India
Yeah.
that I have a little bit of skepticism over it, considering I've seen my people being harmed over it. Like, in Hyderabad, like the outskirts of Hyderabad, there's a small town, and there's this big temple made. Beautiful temple, it had the whole like digital thing, everything. But like over 30,000 tribal people from the lower caste was displaced. So I'm like, the temple's coming, but it's coming at like a totally like different cost, So where like that is where I disconnect. Where I'm like, the temple's being up for a good reason, where it wants people to
Right.
find
And
its spirituality.
it is absolutely a valid point because, but what you are seeing is you are seeing the problem where probably you are identifying that there are just some tribals who are getting displaced. Could be even normal people who are also getting displaced in the name of temple or something. That is also a problem for them. What the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita is telling is, arise above the bodily concept of life. Actually, we are spirit souls. The body that we are having is just a gross covering. But we are identifying very strongly with I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm from India, I'm from, just because I have got this covering. But if I ask you, show me a photograph of yours when you were a baby. So you'll show me a small photograph of yours, maybe in the palm of your father or mother, very tiny, and you'll show, this is me. I will say, no, this is not you. You will say, no, this is me. I will say, oh, you are wearing specs, you are so tall now, how can I believe this? No, when I was a child, I was like this. I'll say, okay, show me that body now. You can't show it, right? So what is happening is, our bodies are constantly changing. This is what is the beginning of, the spiritual knowledge which Krishna reveals, that in this life itself, we are changing our bodies constantly. Even the science says every 7 years, the entire cells in our body constantly changes.
That's right.
It is like in older days, they used to have this movie, when they used to project it on the screen, they will have a spool, and that is meant to go in a very fast pace. So even if it is static frame, on the screen it appears as if it is moving, the characters. Similarly, the changes that are happening in our body is so subtle, we don't realize, but it is changing. After 10 years, if we meet, our bodies will be completely different. So what the Lord is saying, like in this life itself, we are constantly changing body, yet we are able to remember those experiences that I was a child, I was this thing, I had this thing, I had a body. Similarly, at the time of death, when the body becomes useless, the proprietor or the owner of the body quits this body and takes another body. And imagine if you are born in another country. Maybe you are born as an upper caste person, next life, maybe. So then you will think, I'm an upper caste. And now you are identifying again with that body, and you again go on with this cycle of, a life of birth and death. Again you die, again you continue. This process continues. So what is constant in this whole process is our spirit soul.
Correct.
If we know that, that is the beginning. Then all these differences, this thing that people are talking about, my rights, these are all based on the body. When we understand we are not this body, we are actually that bird who's there in the cage, and I'm just taking care of the cage only, forgetting the needs of the soul, the bird, then my activities, my views, my direction, everything will change.
I see where you're coming from. I think like I just like have a hard time still with the disconnect where like things are being made for like the correct purpose, but the path to doing that is somewhat just like a big disconnect. You know what I mean?
So you mentioned about Manusmriti, right?
Correct. Yeah.
In the Vedic scriptures, there is something called Brahma Sutras.
Yeah.
Heard of,
I know
right?
that. Yeah.
They're short aphorisms.
Correct.
They're 550 odd. You know what is the first Brahma Sutra? What's the first Vedic aphorism? You'll be very surprised to know the first Vedic aphorism is Atato Brahma Jigyasa. This is what it is. 3 words. Atato Brahma Jigyasa. He's saying, hence you should inquire about Brahman. The word hence is used when you have stated something, right? When you made some comments or you have told some of the things you've derived, hence proved. Here he is telling hence, therefore you should inquire about Brahman. And the learned scholars have written commentaries. They are saying when we have got this human form of life, which is very rare, where we can inquire about some subject matter which is transcendental, let us do that because this is the best use of the human body. In no other form of life we can do that because we are blessed with the developed intelligence. But if we end up, talking about some things, some issues very passionately and do this, it is a use of, you are utilizing your intelligence, but it is not the best use of your intelligence. Inquire about that Brahman which is separate from this body, which is matter, which is no different from this. When a person dies, just for a moment, just think of this fact. Now I am dead. Now I am sitting here, I am able to hold my head straight, I am able to look at you, I can see and talk and understand what you are saying. The moment I am dead, there is nothing. Right? The body is as it is there. But there is, I can't see you, I can't talk to you, I can't hear. If you come and hit me, I can't feel any pain. But right now, if I bring a sharp object and pierce it, it's painful. Because there is consciousness, there is life force.
Yeah.
So the Vedic literature are telling that, when you've got this human form of life, inquire about that life force. Inquire about that transcendental thing which you are not aware of.
And you call this
Brahman.
Brahman, I heard you say
Soul.
Soul. You said transcendental consciousness.
Right.
Is that the word?
Yeah.
So, I guess ultimately then there's just kind of this like beating question in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
But would you say then that people who use like caste and things of this nature to create division and discrimination, that they are, if this is some sort of pursuit for higher consciousness within some form of lower consciousness?
Pursuit for higher consciousness within some lower
Because you're
consciousness.
almost like you said we're almost in a spiritual journey where the ends is almost a transcendental consciousness or soul, Brahman. And so I guess what I'm saying is, on that journey, if you are using, the text to discriminate against others, would you then be almost a novice in that journey?
No. So the discrimination doesn't come even in that. It is fundamentally understanding that the temporary thing I'm accepting as permanent. Like the body I'm considering it to be myself. This body is constantly changing. I'm actually not this body because this body ultimately I have to leave and go. Right? So the thing which I am actually, I'm not aware of. And that thing which I'm really who I am, that is the spirit soul, which is the non-changing, transcendental, the consciousness, the source of consciousness. So inquire about that. So say the sneezing is considered to be in our this thing that it's a truth. So inquire about that transcendental thing, that which we are all, which what is that consciousness? Inquire about it. Where is it coming from? Why am I trapped in this body? And why I have to die one day? That kind of inquiry, when it comes in our mind, then that leads to the right path. The ignorance in the heart will be removed.
I see.
So I guess that's sort of what I was saying earlier. So it's more like if you are doing this in an proper way. You haven't inquired about the truth.
Exactly.
So like,
100%.
so
There's
like,
no-
so like, in practice, there just has not been a large amount of inquiry about the truth.
lot of
There has not been a lot of inquiry about the truth in practice.
There has been. So what is happening is there are always the seekers of truth who have found the path. They have gone the right path and they are seeking it. But there are people like what she was mentioning. There are people who have taken advantage of the scriptures. In the name of scriptures, they have done their own things which they wanted to. There are always people who are ready to cheat, and there are people who are ready to get cheated. There is a combination which happens. And there are also the people who are sincere, the sincere seekers of truth. The sincerity in our heart leads us to meet the right kind of people who will show us the path. When I am getting satisfied with something which is just shown on the surface, then I am prone to being cheated. Sometimes, in the name of giving some benefits, which is easily achievable or obtainable, people fall for all this cheap tricks and things like that.
And so, what do you see as the path forward, as perhaps the practice doesn't match this inquiry of truth?
Practice doesn't match what?
As perhaps, if there exists discrimination, there, in essence, is a practice that doesn't inquire about the truth.
True. Yeah.
So then, like, how do we move forward?
How do we reconcile?
Like, how do we move
So
forward?
yeah, basically, in life, there are things which we can control,
Yeah.
and there are things which are out of my control, but they are my concern, right? I'm concerned about a section of society being exploited, being manipulated, and all. Maybe I'm concerned about global warming and things like that. But as an individual, probably very little I can do. But what I can certainly do, which is in my control, is ensure that I follow the right path and not get affected by this so-called disturbances by some section of society.
I think like that brings me to my other point where you said that we are like the Bhagavad Gita preaches that we don't harm anyone. We ensure that there is peace and calmness around the society and people are unharmed. Like we I think India as a collective believes in the concept of ahimsa, which is non-violence, right? And like we fought for our independence like that. We've gone through a lot based on this. And I feel like if someone is on that path of like spiritual journey, in some way other people's comfort does become like your problem, and that whole concept of collective comfort swoops in here, where if you are on the spiritual journey in some way, you have to take people along. Like for example, Sikhs in their religion during COVID, for example, hosted a langar, which is a communal kitchen where they fed a lot of people who were migrant laborers, who were on foot, and a lot of that. And I feel like their religion somewhat prescribes the same medicine as our religion does. And I feel like in the same time, if you parallel people in temples and stuff in India, they did not open it up to migrant laborers, because migrant laborers are considered to be from a lower strata of the society, or Shudras or lower caste. And I feel like what you're saying is, on a spiritual journey, we have to ensure there's no harm, we have to look inside, seek the truth, transcend into a better human being. I feel like in order to transcend into a better human being in some way, you have to help people around you, or like do something for the betterment of the people who cannot do something for themselves, in order to transcend into that self-actualization journey like this. And it also like integrates like the hierarchy of needs, where like your physiological, psychological, emotional. And I think for me personally, my emotional needs wouldn't be completely met till like people around me, or my people, or like the people who have been affected, cannot be at peace. Like if I see my people, like my fisherman community, not being treated the right way, telling that, oh, you guys just belong on boats, or multiple corporations coming and wiping the business of the people that have been doing it for centuries now. I just don't think like I could like transcend into that particular sense of self till like in some way pieces of society are adjusted. Because once you're in a peaceful society, then only like you can rest. That's my theory, at least.
So if I ask you to help me with $10,
I can do that.
You need to necessarily have money more than $10.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, you can't. So, if you want to help, first you need to ensure you are in the right position,
That's true.
emotionally,
That's true.
spiritually. Then only you can do. Otherwise, if you are only having deficit and you want to help, you will end up becoming more frustrated.
Definitely.
How do you become rich within? The richness within comes by transcendental knowledge, where you come to a state of equanimity, where you come to a state of more balance, and then you look at the problems, you will find better solutions.
That's fine.
Otherwise, what happens is the emotions and our sometimes passion blind the path, or it makes us look a portion of the path, and the portion of it remains uncovered. Covered, sorry. So when we have that transcendental knowledge, when we are rich within, I can extend a hand to somebody else to pull me out.
That's good. Yeah.
I see. So essentially, this inquiry of truth, pursuit of self-actualization. I think, how do I say? Earlier we asked, how do we move forward, right? And I think the answer posed was, we move forward by inquiring in truth, self-actualizing. We can only, perhaps even a step further, we can only help those around us when we've helped ourselves in that regard. Isn't there room then for within the conversation of self-actualization for a second step that is action? And how is that then something that is used as a tool to better the way in which the bridge between theory and practice exists?
Good question. So let me give you an example. Probably we're also getting late, but this could be the final thing. Just pay attention to this example. Easily you can understand. Imagine if you have to make a journey from point A to point B. You can walk, or you can take a car. Imagine you choose the second option of going in a car. Now in car also you can have various options. The car which you are choosing, at least you have to ensure that it has a good body, good chassis, good wheel, good axles and things like that. That's the external body, which is in a good condition, so that you can sit in that car and it can go comfortably. But only looking at the external body is not enough. You need to also know that the engine is in a good condition. The engine is also working fine. But only ensuring the engine and the bodies are working in good condition is not enough. You need to have a small tiny thing called the steering wheel, which is also has to be in the proper condition, because that gives us the direction. So these three things which I spoke about, one is the chassis, the body, the external part, is the what, the action that we need to do in our life. What action I should do? Like you said, if there is transcendental knowledge, there should be a second step. What kind of an action? The action is what I need to do in life is that body part. But if you are only doing action and you are not aware of the transcendental knowledge, the knowledge which is required for your self-actualization, which is the engine, that is the how part. If you don't know that, then the body will, it's not enough. You need to have that how that transcendental knowledge is there, then you will do the right action. But you have the transcendental knowledge and you are doing action. Another thing which is required is the direction. You need to go in the right direction. Point A to point B you have to go. The direction comes from the steering wheel, which is the spiritual practices, sadhana that we do. So the steering wheel is the sadhana. This engine is swadhyaya, or the knowledge about ourselves, and this body or the chassis that I was talking about is called the seva, the actions that we do, services. So to do services, I need to have the combination of all these three. Transcendental knowledge will give us the clarity to what next step should be, and at the same time I should have some spiritual practices to get the right direction. Otherwise I can go in the wrong direction.
I see. And sorry for getting some time, I just have a follow-up question.
No problem.
So I guess would then you see your role just to get people to build the car, but not to get people to drive it? Or do you think that there is a role for you and your group to make firmer stances about what post self-actualization should look like, especially with regards to taking perhaps more formal stances against incorrect practices of caste.
Yeah. So you see, now one thing is we are all feeling the anger or agitation that there is a section of society who's trying to manipulate or exploit things, and we want to change. We really want to bring that change. But there are two ways to see what kind of an action can be taken to bring that change. One side is you go and probably you are also agitated and you try to talk and try to do something which could be counterproductive. What has to be done if you really want to bring a change is, go and understand the person whom you are trying to change. If really you are bothered about it, one particular person in your life and want to bring a change in him, see in what position he is in. In the sense, there is something called dipstick. When we bake a cake, and if you want to know whether it has been done or not, you just put a stick and see what. Right? So you have to see in what level he is in. Sometimes our advice can be so counterproductive that instead of that person making a change in the right direction, may become more averse to our
I see
action.
what you're saying.
That makes sense.
I see what you're saying. Good.
Change can be brought, but there is a time, place, and there is a way that has to be brought. So if all these things are not properly thought of and we take some action, it is only going to the distances are going to become more and more wider.
I see what you're saying. That makes a lot of sense. So then you're basically talking about that's a good comparison. I mean, you're talking about not treating your foe as an enemy, rather seeing them as your friend, right? I mean,
It's not easy.
and really only through coming at them as if they're your friends would they be able to, would you be able to even to use their words against them?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like oh, aren't we all in the same boat? Makes sense. You're almost saying that in some way, even within the last 100 years, practices of revolutionary practices have largely create much division when tears into the fabric of society, because I mean at the end of the day it just splits everybody up instead of sort of finding a way to realize that we're all compatriots and that if we're going to form a long lasting relationship, that means we all I mean I guess the negotiation is to form a long lasting relationship. It's not,
I agree. But it is not that the world is all bad and there is no hope. There are some section of society who still wants to follow the path of truth, who are genuinely concerned how this world can be a better place. So to do that, we need to equip ourselves with the right knowledge. Otherwise, it is difficult to, like what I said in theory, that to understand someone as not as your enemy and to look at him as your friend is not an easy thing.
I see what you're saying. So you're in some way ultimately saying that the path forward is one that speaks the language of the oppressor.
First is we have to change ourselves. Because if we become a better person within, we will be better equipped to face with reversals and difficulties in life. Because when somebody comes and talks to us in a very provocative manner or in a very angry manner, if you are also not able to control your temper and you also shout back, it only leads to further chaos.
Right.
First, you have to maintain your sanity. Just because we are doing right thing, so-called in our mind we are thinking we are doing the right thing, doesn't mean that we have the right to lose our temper. The more we become tolerant, not that I'm saying that we should compromise all our this thing and we should just be like one humble this thing. Not necessarily. But that action of ours can bring a huge transformation on the other person if we behave in the proper way.
You're almost suggesting a better approach.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. Fire doesn't put out fire.
Exactly. There is a story. Maybe by the time he comes, we will end for sure with this.
Sorry.
Very interesting story. You should know this. There was a sage who was there on the banks of a river, and he saw that one scorpion was getting carried away by the waves of the river. So he finished his bath and he was about to come out, and he saw that. So being a sage, he was very compassionate. He lifted that scorpion in his palms. So the water dripped down, and the scorpion came to the palm, and it stung. There was a bit biting of the scorpion.
My
and
grandfather told me the story.
He told that.
Yeah.
Scorpion's bite is very painful, very very painful. So immediately he left it. So again the scorpion fell down on the river. So again he tried to lift him, and again the scorpion it stung, and then it left him. Like that it was continuing. There was an onlooker, a passerby, who was seeing this thing. He was very curious. He said, "Are you mad or what? Why are you doing this? Are you not learning the lesson? You're trying to save this scorpion and it is biting you." He told something which, if you remember, it will be very helpful in always for anyone else. I try to remember this always. What he told is, the scorpion, when it is getting carried away by the waves of the river, it is almost about to die, yet it is not forgetting its dharma. Dharma is it's your characteristics of biting. How, when I am a human being and I am comfortably situated, why should I forget my dharma of saving him? What that means is, never allow another person who's coming with a provocative this thing to instigate or to do something. Never allow that person to have an upper hand by losing your temper. He is doing out of something mode of passion or ignorance. Something has happened. He's coming and he's trying to bite you or beat you or something. Never allow yourself to become subservient to that by losing your temper. Always, remember the story that like that person, the sage, never lost its cool, never lost its dharma. We should always remember to remain in that mode of goodness. When we are there in mode of goodness, we can counter ignorance and passion. People who are at a lower modes, means who are agitated over this thing, only that way you can counter. But if you also go to ignorance and passion, then there cannot be any solution. It's a very powerful story.
Thank you,
So much.
sir.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to
Nice
meet you as
meeting
well.
with you.